Hello, and welcome back to Call Your Coven, practical advice for nonsensical times. I'm your resident astrologer, Jeanna Cadlick, she, her, and today we are going to be talking about planetary days, or the planets that correspond to each day of the week, and how observing them can help us plan ahead more smartly, but also more intentionally, more mindfully, divesting from capitalism. These are the goals. Planetary days are probably the singular astrological timing technique that I most utilize in my everyday life. It can be helpful to know what transits are happening. It can be useful to find an election or an ideal time to do a big activity like a wedding or a book launch. But if I tried to find like the perfect time of each and every day for every single activity I was ever gonna do, running errands, doctor's appointments, writing my books, recording this podcast, like I would fucking implode. That level of trying to optimize is just not possible for the vast majority of us. I think part of the appeal of astrology in our current day and age isn't just the fact that like the new and full moons actively feed the content machine, but it's also because in the global West, there is this constant search for better, easier, more optimized, more streamlined, that astrology approached from a capitalist worldview seems like it could be useful for. But I tend to only be interested in teaching practices that check two boxes. So, first, is this a technique or a practice that is easy to use, easy to remember, and easy to experiment with for a wide variety of people depending on your circumstances in life? Second, I prioritize practices that put us more directly in relationship with the planets themselves. My friend Pallas Augustine calls this relational astrology, which I think I've mentioned before, but they've written a kind of manifesto about it that's in their new book called The IC. I'll link it in the show notes. So good. But Pallas's terminology of relational astrology is this relationship forward, animistic understanding of the universe that is centered around the idea that we are in relationship, like not only with the world around us, but also with celestial bodies. Like we aren't just using the moon on a new moon to get more money. The moon is a being that we are in relationship with every single day, kind of whether we're acknowledging it or not. And so this is why I love planetary days, which is also just a shorthand way of saying that each day of the week is associated with a planet and that we can then tailor our activities on those days to things that that planet is in charge of. Planetary days are just really easy. Like, once you know them, they're really easy to use because they never change. Like, Saturday is always Saturn's day, straight up. So they're consequently really easy to experiment with and personalize to where you are in life at this particular moment. Like, the reason we have 7 days in a week in this world is because of the astrological calendar that was kept by the ancient Romans. The standardized 7 day week, as we know it, was instituted by the Roman Empire circa 2nd century CE, and every day of the week was associated with a planet. By the time Vettius Valens was writing about astrology, the idea of planetary weeks and of a standardized 7 day week was like baked in the culture. Back then, there were generally considered to be 7 planets, all of which were visible in the sky: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and then also the Sun and the Moon. And you might be like, Gina, we learned in elementary school that the sun is a star and the moon is a moon or a satellite planet, you know? But the idea of what a planet was back then was a little different. So in English, we get the word planet from the Greek planetes, which meant wanderer. It's like actually quite poetic and beautiful, you know? Like the planets would have been considered, or they were considered, wandering stars, as opposed to the fixed stars that make up constellations like Orion and Ursa Major, right? Like the planets objectively physically moved, like their movement could be tracked, their transits could be tracked, and so they were wandering stars. So each day of the week is named for a planet. This can vary culturally also in terms of what our contemporary modern day name is for a planet, because things obviously then get personalized to the area of the world that we're talking about. Some of the days of the week you probably have already worked out for yourself because they are very obvious. Sunday, you guessed it. It is the sun's day. Monday is the moon's day. In Spanish, Monday is lunes, right? And the moon's Latin name is Luna. So those are very clear, you know. In English, Tuesday is where we start to hit a question mark because Tuesday is Mars's day. And in Spanish, it's Martes, like it's very clearly, you know, related to Mars. So it's like in English, Tues. What the hell? Like, where does that come from? And this is where, when I said that, like, cultural variation can come in and change things up and inform them. This is where that's happening, right? So, Norse mythology was really influential in Northern Europe, and the Norse equivalent of the Roman war god Mars, or the Greek Ares, would have been Tyr in Old Norse, or Tu, which there you go, in Old English, and that would have been spelled Tiw. So it's then the same thing for Wednesday, which is Mercury's day. In Spanish, it's miércoles. Again, very obviously mercurial, but here we're also looking to the Norse god who shares psychopompic qualities with Mercury, which would have been Woden. So Woden, Wednesday. Thursday is more obvious here. It's like Thor, god of lightning, Norse god of lightning, readily associated for that reason alone with Jove or Zeus. In Spanish, again, Jueves is Thursday, so you see how that Jovian influence comes in. They have that more direct Latin influence, but Thor's day in English. Friday is Venus's day. The Norse equivalent there is Frigga, hence the Friday. In Spanish, Friday is Viernes. Again, you see it. And then we end the week with Saturday, which in English is very obviously Saturn's day. But it's interesting that in Spanish and a number of Romance languages, Saturday is actually Sabado or Sabbath. So there is a linking of rest to work in that. And I'm really interested in that. And we're going to explore that when we talk about Saturn in a little bit. So we've gone over the planetary days, and this raises the question then, okay, like Sunday is the sun's day, Monday is the moon's day. Cool. How do I apply that to my life? Like, what does that mean? How do we pick which activities to do when? So, here I'm just going to throw out a bunch of ideas and suggestions. And this is also where I want to remind everyone that discernment and personalization comes in. You know, when I'm saying things, I'm not giving you a to-do list for each and every day of the week. Those are ideas based on the quality of the planet, the things that that planet rules. And you can then take that and personalize it and explore and imagine new options. You know, everyone listening to this is able to do different things. We are all interested in a lot of different things, probably. We're different ages, different races, different religions, different classes. Some people have kids, some people don't. The existing responsibilities that you have on your life are probably different than your neighbors. And then your relationship with the planets already, you know. You might be a really curious beginner, which I'm so glad you're here. And you might be a fellow professional astrologer just listening to this because we're friends and you're already deeply familiar with what the planetary days are and you have your own practices for that. Like, it's all welcome. Everyone is going to be doing different things, and we welcome this here. We absolutely welcome it. I will also say that some planetary energies may feel more accessible to you in part because of whatever your setup is in your chart, right? Like, are you someone who is a Libra sun, Libra rising, just very straight up child of Venus? So those Venus qualities and Venus topics feel more accessible to you, a little more easeful for you. Or are you like me, a Capricorn sun, Aquarius rising, or an Aquarius sun and a Capricorn rising, and you're just straight up a child of Saturn. And so the Saturnian feels a little more accessible, and the pleasure stuff may be a little more difficult. everyone's coming at this differently. And so I just want to encourage folks also to look at their own charts, see what the planetary rulers of your sun, moon, and rising signs are, like see which planets you maybe gravitate to a little bit more. Start there, start small, and then we build. So, let's start with the sun. Let's get into it. The sun is so much about our personal vitality, what energizes us. It has to do with like the body and health to an extent, but it's really the life force, the spirit, the soul of a person, what really gets you going, what our sense of purpose is. And Sunday is the first day of the week, and so it's a great time to focus on activities that light you up, that give you a sense of purpose, right? And this could look like having a weekly lunch where your friends just kind of come hang out every single week. It could look like going to a house of worship. It could look like taking a long morning walk to get croissants and coffee with your partner and your dog. Or if you live in a place like I live in New York, so we're always walking, but maybe you live in the country and so you guys go for a long drive, you go to your favorite shop in town, you go back out and like walk in the woods. Again, what lights you up? What feels sacred to you? What feels purposeful? What is your ideal start to the week? And our goal here with Sunday is not to be end of the weekend trying to catch up on everything, but it's to be really intentional with planning the week ahead, considering what your week holds, considering what you may reasonably have energy for, and to just start the week with a joyful sense of both movement and also curiosity that grounds you in your values and grounds you in your sense of purpose and why you're here. This is also then a great day for self-care, great day for journaling, for just checking in with yourself about where you are emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, all the things. On moon days or Mondays, we want to really be nourishing the body since the moon is so representative of our physical bodies, like our very literal physical presence that we have on this earth at this moment. Like, I happen to be recording this episode on a Monday, and my beloved is making us some French onion soup for dinner, which is like a perfect lunar meal that is both sickness preventing, like all of those onions, and then it's also just soul nourishing, right? Like hot soup, bread, those things that just cheese, like those things that feel really just, I mean, if you're me, really good to the soul. Mondays are also great days for meal prep, for ritual bathing, for rest, for lunar meditations if you observe the lunar cycle. Because the moon also has to do with our feelings and our emotional health, this is also a really good day to schedule your therapy and other mindfulness related practices. Really focus on cultivating an awareness of the somatic and of a mind body link on Mondays. Also, a good day for massages. Tuesdays are Mars days. Mars is the action star or the warrior of the zodiac. So I'm going to start with physical activity, surprising no one. These are great days for workouts, but Tuesday's especially a good day to schedule your heaviest lifting or your most intensive like hit cardio. If you are extra competitive and love a group activity or a group sport, it's a very good day to have, your running group meet, to get your friends to go axe throwing, to join a group sport that meets on Tuesday, do your CrossFit. On a less physical note, we can also more readily marshal, like even the word marshal, our energy towards getting shit done because our activation energy just tends to be so much higher on Tuesdays. This is a good day to get mundane chores off of your to-do list. Tuesdays can also be a really good time to schedule big medical things, like surgeries. Many hospitals put non-emergency surgeries on Tuesdays, and since Mars also rules blood, we do like Tuesday for a surgery day, like pending the conditions of the moon, pending the conditions of Mars itself. I recently elected to have a major surgery on a Tuesday in part for those reasons. Wednesdays. Wednesdays are Mercury days, so if you are a writer or if your day job in any way involves speaking or communicating, schedule your big stuff for Wednesdays. If you're in marketing or sales, that kind of thing, in as much as you can schedule Wednesdays as like your big meeting day. I know it's midweek, I know it's like it's not the top of the week, but like it's a very helpful day for all of that. I usually try to record my solo episodes for Call Your Coven on Wednesdays. And since Mercury governs communication, writers, all things language, Wednesdays are also just a great day extracurricularly to take language classes, to catch up on your Duolingo, to send your weekly newsletter, to go to literary events, or to volunteer at your local library. For the last 6 years, my writers group has met Wednesday nights. So, also, if you want to even just be grabbing dinner, drinks, coffee, whatever, with your fellow writer friends, your fellow folks who work in sales and marketing, great day to do that. In non-communication topics, Mercury is also in charge of commerce, especially like local commerce. Jupiter is more of like the big investment stuff. So this can be a good day for like bill paying, invoicing, meeting with your accountant, going to the bank, bookkeeping, checkbook balancing, all of those things. And Mercury also, the last thing I'll say here, Mercury has a kind of immortal youthfulness, if you will, that makes them very friendly to children. And so if you have kids or if kids are really, really important in your life, doing things like children's events at your local library or bookstore or music classes for your toddler, like Wednesdays are a really great day for all of those things. Thursdays are Jupiter's day, and Jupiter is really about what we believe and why. Jupiter has so much to do with our values and around spirituality, religion, higher education, like how we believe we learn things, how we then share what we're learning. So, this is also a really lovely time to do a sacred ritual or just to schedule like a weekly check in date with your spirits. If that's a practice that you're wanting to start, obviously, like different organized religions have different designated days of worship, communally speaking, and our time off on weekends is like largely an outgrowth of that. But if you're wanting to invest more in your religious or spiritual life, you may also consider going to a non weekend service, whether virtually or in person, on Thursdays. Especially in larger cities, this is incredibly common. You may also consider scheduling your spiritually relevant donations to hit your bank account on Thursdays, especially if you like tithe to your church or if you donate to an organization that for you is very value and belief driven in nature, like here in New York, if you donate to the Working Families Party or the DSA, like that would be a Thursday because also Jupiter also low key has a lot to do with the law and politics. So that stuff also very much. And then because I mentioned like Jupiter also does rule higher education, this is a great time to take a class, to teach a class, whether it's like throwing pottery, teaching someone how to knit, memoir writing, whatever it is. It's a good day to learn. It's a good day to prioritize learning. And Jupiter can also help us grow and expand the things that we care the most about. So if you're in the middle of a project that you're like trying to get across the finish line, scheduling Jupiter days, Thursdays, as like your heavy hitting work days could be a really helpful thing. Friday is Venus Day. I love Friday for this reason. I mean, Fridays are culturally beloved for many reasons, but they are Venus's day. So I love getting a haircut on Friday. I love getting my nails done on Friday, going shopping on Friday, like going out for a lush, splurgy meal with my wife to be, going to a museum to soak in the art, having some intimate time, like all of those things, love, relationship, beauty, culture, are the domain of Venus. So Friday is just a really great day to focus on yourself and your beloveds. Friday is for pleasure, 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 pleasure. Underline it 3 times. Even my fellow Capricorns, we are focusing on pleasure. We take pleasure seriously on Friday. Saturday is Saturn's day. Saturn is often associated with work, and to be sure, like Saturn does govern our responsibilities and those things which mature us and force us into accountability. But this is the thing I think people miss with Saturday being Saturn's day, is that the emphasis on boundaries means that Saturn is also deeply about rest, about the scales of balance, as it were, about the input that enables the output. about being really intentional with where we put our energy. Like the last thing Saturn wants is for us to burn out. And so whether Saturdays are for chores and like the mundane things that we all have to do to keep the house running, or if it's a rest day, if it is a Sabbath, Sabado, either one, this is us at the end of the week checking in with ourselves and being really fucking realistic about what we need, about where our energy is, about what we have committed to that we didn't get done, and that maybe we should adjust our expectations around. Like Saturn is the realist, you know? So this is a good day also to journal, to talk with the people you share space with, and really like have a check-in communally, individually about where you've put your energy this week and where you want to be putting your energy in the future. Like Saturn helps us to take stock and assess. And those are the planetary days. I encourage starting by trying one at a time to see how they feel. Personally, like I said, I love a Venus day for introducing some more intentional self-care into the routine, especially for my fellow femmes. See if observing the planetary days like brings you into a deeper awareness of how you use your time and energy, of how your energy itself ebbs and flows throughout the week, and also if it helps to take you off of autopilot. This life is magical and also profoundly mundane, and sometimes we need a reminder to pull us out of a rut. And the planets can really help us begin to move with more intention and mindfulness. So I'm wishing you a lot of love and peace as holiday season here in the US starts to kick up. If you're interested in developing a deeper relationship with the planets and with this kind of relational astrology, you can check out my newsletter, Astrology for Writers, which is on Substack. The link is in the show notes. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, please share it with a friend. Sharing is caring, and it's not fun to be in a coven by yourself. We want to be with our witchy besties. You can also, of course, rate, review, subscribe, and if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. B and Meg and I are the coven, but the coven is also you. And we want to hear from you. So I will see you in December for the coven's December forecast. Lots of love.